Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar on utilizing the railing settings in Revit. And I'm Alyssa Jairus, and I'm a BIM specialist at Baker Baines in the AEC builds space. Okay, so who is Baker Baines? So for those of you who don't know, we're a Autodesk Gold partner, and we specialize in a few of those products that you see on your screen, and along with CAD learning and civil site design. All right, and we believe in designing a better world, in delivering a better project or product, and in technology adoption to produce results. Okay, and the agenda for today is we're going to try to create a complex railing type. A lot of people struggle with the balustrade railing tools or settings in Revit. So we're going to go through some of those settings to see how we can kind of break it down to make it a little bit easier for you guys to get the hang of it. And we're going to go through understanding the railing properties, which is the top rails, the handrails, the rail structure, and the baluster placement. We're going to do some adjustments to the railing structure, which involves adding railings, specifying those railing profiles, and what kind of material is used on those railing profiles. We're going to be working with railing balusters and posts, okay, to determine a kind of pattern that we would like, and also specifying what kind of baluster family do we want to use and what does that look like. And then we're going to specify the baluster justification along a certain path, and to see how we could possibly customize those specific posts. Right, and the last thing that we're going to go through is some best practices for you guys, just some tips on what to possibly look for in the future. And if you check out the pictures next to the agenda, you'd see like the kind of basic idea I want to go for with regard to our railing, with it being a bit side mounted and railing profiles of those that you see on the screen. And there's a little breakdown of what the actual structure is with regard to the railing on there. Okay, so I'm just going to switch to my screen. All right. So I just have in front of us a very generic building that I've just done quickly, just to add in the balustrade. But let's just first go through like the process of the balustrade and how we're actually going to implement it in Revit. So first and foremost, I would say that you need to come up with a proper design, probably sketched out, have a good idea of what you want to do before you do it in Revit. So it's good to design these things and how it's going to work before you actually put it into the software, because I think it just saves more time for you instead of figuring out and rummaging around the Revit software. So what we should understand is that the railing tool or the railing family is a system family. And what a system family means is basically it's not like any other ordinary family. You can't just click on the railing and just edit it in a family edit mode. There's certain components built into it in different ways. So example, you would have your kind of railing balustrade, and then you would have your top rail, and then you would have your rails profiles, and you would have all of those separate components that you can edit, and then together join those together and make a custom profile or custom railing for yourself. Okay, so first we need to understand what does it consist of. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly get a railing going in here. Let's just see what this looks like. So I just go to edit type, and I just want to show you quickly. So right now you can see that the system railing family, and if we go through some of these items in here, we can see that there's a railing structure, a top rail, a handrail even, and even a baluster. Okay, so there's separate components. With that in mind, I'm going to show you a little bit more. But these are separate components. You must understand that if you want to edit these, they edited separately from the complete railing type that you would end up building. So I'm just going to close this. If you just pop your eye down to the right here, so we can see that there's a few profiles down here. Okay, but there's railings down there. Okay, so you get a profile family in which you can specify that it might be a railing profile family, and with that profile you can generate your rails and your handrails and so on. Okay, so under the railing you can see there's a handrail type and all of these balusters that you see there. If I click on the railing down here, it gives you the whole kind of family that is built up to form the balustrade that you would initially or eventually draw onto your space. Okay, so all of these handrail types and balusters, they're all separate components that eventually make up your bigger railing family, if I might say. All right, so right now I have created, so let's jump to my folder. With the design in mind, obviously I've calculated what I need to calculate according to where my ballast is sitting or where my rail is sitting. So with that in mind, I have created a few things that we can quickly just open and just check out. So I've got a profile in here, so just ignore project one. I've got a profile, I have a rectangular handrail, and I even have a baluster. Okay, so these are separate components. Remember, they're separate components. Let's open up our baluster first. Okay, let's check out what that family looks like. So I've just used normal family of balusters to create this. And essentially, if I just go to my 3D view, you'll see that I've created it in this baluster in such a way that I had a mounted section, a side mounted area on that end. So I'm just going to jump to my previous. Okay, that one looks good. All right, you can see these reference lines that are kind of holding this baluster together. Okay, this is the front view, and I've attached certain dimensions and locked certain components within this family in order for this baluster to work how I want it to work. Okay, with this in mind, let's see what I've done. Okay, so the level, floor level is sitting there, right? And there's my baluster profile on the top. Okay, with that in mind as the level of placement. And then down about 175 mils is the starting of my side mounted profile. So I've just added this on, so that sits below the level. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I've even added like a thickness, and I've locked it. You know, if you don't want to keep a parametric family, you might as well lock certain elements. Like I locked the side mounted area of this baluster because I don't want to kind of change that distance, but if I want to, then I'll add a parameter to this end. Okay, so just remember that if you want something specific and you can try and find it online, but if you don't, I mean, it's fairly simple process of creating a baluster. Right, so let's close this and check out the other bit of things that we have in that folder. The second bit there is my handrail. It's super simple. It's a profile family that has been used, okay? But under the profile usage of this family, you can see that I've specified that it's specifically for a railing, okay? You can change this accordingly, okay? Essentially, if you had a gutter profile that you needed to draw up, you would choose gutter, okay? And these are simply 2D lines, symbolic lines that just create the profile that I need it to be. Okay, fairly simple. It's just a box. There's no 3D and so on. right? And the last one in there was just a profile. It's just the same concept. It's a railing profile of the profile family, and it's 2D lines in a circular format. Okay, essentially you could do your own designs in this regard if you had something a bit more funky. Let's close that up. All right. So what is the process of creating anything for that matter, any family or system family for that matter, would be to first, okay, let's first get into a floor view to draw in our things. So let's use the second level. Okay, all right. So I just want to quickly show you something before I actually start with this. What this baluster looks like in floor plan, something like that. Okay, so there's my baluster there, and there's the kind of mounted area. Okay, so that mounted area, the distance from where it would be mounted onto the slab to the start of the baluster is about 30 mils, and halfway point is about 42. So it's nice to keep that in mind when I'm drawing my path, that how far do I offset it from my floor slab so that I can draw that pathway through. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm in my floor plan. Let's start off a railing. So I'm going to use sketch path. Okay, first thing I want to do before I draw anything for that matter on here is edit the type and duplicate the railing. Okay, so I'm going to use that to duplicate. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this railing and rename it. And why we do that is because we don't want to mess up any of the original things in here. If we're going to use that railing in another point, we want to make sure that that railing is still on there. So we duplicate and then we rename our railing to what we need it to be. I'm just going to name it custom railing. Right, with this in place, we can go ahead and kind of edit what we need to. So let's check out the different components of the system family. Right, so here we have the rail structure and the baluster placement. Two important things in your structure. And there's also a top rail and a handrail. And why there's that difference is that even though you may have a top rail, it's not a must that that top rail is a handrail, or it's not always that a top rail is a handrail. You may have a side-mounted handrail that you would possibly put in. But for now, we're just using the top rail as our handrail. Okay, so you can see that use top rail is noted as yes, and then we specify the overall height of this balustrade. Okay, from keeping in mind that it's from the level upwards. Okay, all right, so it's at 900. I'm happy with that. All right, let's just go back and do that again. Okay, so you can see the type. What type of rail are we using, or what type of profile rather would I say? So right now it's circular 40 mils, and I don't want that, so I'm just going to click on the little box on the side. Okay, and you can see that we only have circular and elliptical things. Okay, because my handrail isn't loaded in here. So let's go and get our profile, or handrail profile that we wanted. Okay, so I'm going to cancel out of here. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click Done, or Quit Sketching rather. And then let's add in that handrail. Okay, let's add in the profile. Okay, I'm just dragging and dropping. Adding those. And my baluster. Okay, so I've got my components in here. Let's do that again. So I'm sketching my handrail. All right, edit type, duplicate it, custom railing. All right, so let's go back to the top rail and go and click on the handrail. And now we can see that our top rail is still not there. Okay, that's because we need to duplicate it and change it on profile. Okay, so let's duplicate this and say that we want a rectangular. Okay, and we can specify what's the distance. I think I've made my profile 50 by 25. Okay, so let's duplicate that. It's a system family. Remember, there's components within components. Okay, so let's go to profile there that you see, and then let's drop down the list of profiles, and then you can see that our rectangular handrail that I've created and dragged and dropped in is sitting in here, okay, along with other bunch of profiles. Okay, so let's select that one. Okay, I'm happy with that, and I can change the material on here if necessary. So I'm just going to click the material, and let's just try and find some steel. And I can choose stainless steel maybe. All right. Okay, there's other things in here that it's worth going through as well. Types of extensions. If you've seen extensions that kind of like, especially in like warehouse type places, plant type places, where there's a little rail extension, like almost like a curve, a semicircle. So you would add in your extensions for your rails in here. Okay, you can join it to the floor, to the wall, or back around to the post. Okay, so you can play around with those things and see what it does. So I'm done with my rail in here. Click OK. Okay, I'm happy with that. And then I can go and move on to the rail structure. So let's edit the rail structure, right? And then you can see all these bits and pieces of what the handrail looks like. But what's confusing is that I don't really have an image to work with. So usually we can click on this preview button at the bottom, and this helps us actually have a live view of what we're actually changing to see the overall image of it. But just make sure that your view is set to the actual 3D view and not a floor plan or something. Okay. So with this here, we can make it a little bit easier for us to edit this railing. All right, so let's do this. Okay, if I select on each element, it shows you on the side here what's actually doing. Okay, so there's 4 rails in place at the moment, and I can insert a bit more. I can change the profile in here. I'll change the name, the height, the offset of that, and assign a material to this profile. Okay, so when you create a profile family, just know that the assigning of materials happens within the system family of whatever you're trying to edit. Okay, so let's see if we can do this. I'm going to rename all of this. I'm going to make that 100, and I go 200. Let's do 300, 400. Okay, so if I click on apply, just moves it down for me on that end. Okay, and let's add a little bit more. Okay, let's actually first change this profile before we continue. So I'm looking for profile. If you remember, I did a profile. Okay, let's see which one we can use in here. Let's use that 20, 30 more. Okay, I'm going to change all of those to 30 more. Okay. And then I can change this material to stainless steel as well, or whatever material you need to. I'm just being generic. All right, cool. Then let's add a few more because this doesn't look like it's gonna pass for building standards. Okay, let's move this down. I can name this rail, and then I set a height for it. With regard to offset, let me just quickly show you what it does. Okay, so if I put in an offset of, let's be a bit dramatic, say 50, if I apply, you can see where that's popping itself, that end. So the offset, it goes in that direction. Okay, negative is going to pull that profile the other way around. Okay, so it really depends on your design and what you're actually doing, and then you could use that to change whatever you're doing for your design. But what in case I wanted a profile of 10 moles? I'll show you that a little bit later, how to actually edit these profiles. Okay, meantime, let me just change some of these. I'm just gonna change all of these in the meantime. Okay, depending on your design again, you could have glass panels or cables, depending on your profile, your material, and how you've set it up. Okay, I'm going to insert another rail 700. Let's set another down. Okay, I think that's enough. Let's change these profiles and then change this material here on the side again. Okay, apply, and see that on the side. Okay, but the balusters are kind of looking a bit out of it, hey, and this black color is not doing it for me. So I'm just going to change the color. There we go. All right, so if I click OK, because I'm done with the structure of it, all right, then I can go ahead and do the baluster placement. Okay, so let's see what the balusters are doing at the moment. Okay, so the first thing that we have is basically the main pattern of your balusters and what it's actually doing as a whole. And then down here you see the start, corner, and end post, which is basically if you want to customize those to look a little bit different from the other posts, then you can. Okay, again, it depends on your design. So let's check out what's going on the main pattern. So right now we can see that you have a regular baluster as the name, which is fine. And then we have a baluster family in here. All right, so this family is basically, if I click on this, can scroll down and I can find my loaded baluster that I've created as an external file. And you can see the rest in up here. Okay, so if you have more, you would have a longer list of balusters. And click this. Let's update it and see what it's doing. It's looking good. All right, and then we can go check out what the top rail is doing. Okay, but before that, I can see that there's base. Okay, what base basically means is that right now base is sitting on host, which means that it's sitting on whatever this railing is hosted to. Say it's a floor, say it's a staircase, that means the bottom of this baluster is attached to that host. Then if I want to start the baluster from rail 1, okay, it's going to look a bit weird because of my design, but essentially I could do that. So let me try it with a different one. Okay, so I could say that baluster is attached to the base at rail 2, and it's going to kind of do that. Again, it's coming back to your design. So essentially, if you wanted more balusters in this main pattern, you could duplicate it in here. Okay, I'm going to go back to set that up and set that as host. And base offset is basically adding an offset to the bottom of the balustrade or the baluster. Okay, if you want it to be go down a little bit more, so if it's minus 200, okay, so it's going to push it down. Okay, so essentially we could control that placement of the side-mounted attachment that we've created using this base offset. Okay, so I'm going to put that back. The next one on there is basically the same as what we were doing there with the base, except at the top, it's talking about the top of the baluster and where it's attached. So if it's not attached to the top rail, essentially you could have had a design that is kind of stopping the baluster from going all the way through. All right, and again we have an offset on the side here. Okay, all right. The next one there is pretty self-explanatory. It's just the distance of the balusters from each other, or the maximum kind of distance, if you might. Okay, which is the meter, and I could essentially change that to anything that I feel. And then we have offset again, which is offset in that direction. Okay, we'll try it out. See, it's offset in that direction. Okay. Okay, I'm done with the main pattern. If I go back down here, I can specify and tell my balustrade that I want you to break your pattern at a specific point. Okay, again, it comes down to what is your design looking like. If you had a certain angle and you didn't want the pattern to repeat itself at an angle greater than, and you can specify the angle in that area. Down here is basically your justification of your balusters. Okay, so what happens if you have a distance, a meter from each other, and then you kind of, when it comes to the end of your balustrade, you have this little gap of random space left over. Okay, so this is basically the justification. Okay, you can either justify the railing to begin with the meter different distance that we've specified here, okay, and populate itself until it can't, and then you have a little space left over. Okay, the second one is exactly the same, except it ends with the rounded off distance, but it starts off with a kind of weird space in between. And central baluster placement is basically centralizing your pattern, okay, so that the two ends, the one end, the end, and the beginning spaces are equal as compared to the spaces in between. Okay, so the offcuts or the end spaces or end distances are equalized on either side. And the last one, which is my favorite, is just a spread to fit pattern, and it populates itself according to your distance from previous, or very, very closely to that figure. Okay, as close as it can be. Okay, that's the better one to use, or the one that we usually use. Again, it depends on your design, so I'm going to select that one. All right, and what you see down here is basically if you want to use balusters per tread on stairs. And it's a really weird functionality, but you can try it out and see what it does. It puts a baluster on each stair when doing balusters or balustrades on staircases. Okay. And the last one here is the start and end post. So right now, if I click apply, you can see the start and the end post kind of not doing anything. They don't look like that one. Okay, it's because I haven't specified the family, and I can just go click that. Okay, but it allows me to kind of change it to anything other than these profiles, which is pretty decent. And if I had a corner, I could specify a corner post as well. Okay, I'm just going to set it as that. You won't see much on that end. Again, there's base offset and base, and top rail offset is the same as those that you see on here. Okay. But if I just zoom in here, you can see something funky is going on. Okay, and that's the next option that I'm going to click on, which is space. All right. So if I put space, so let's look at the start post. It's the start post, or the end post rather. Okay, you can see that space is there. This right now it's minus 12.5. If I put 0 on here, let's see what it does. Okay, apply. You can see that this railing is being offset that direction. Okay, so essentially I want that railing, the top rail, to kind of sit directly above or in the same plane of that baluster. So let's try our hand at it. Let's see if we not put a negative 25, right? And that kind of works for it. So it works with halves. So right now my profile of my baluster is looking like, I think 50 by 25. So if I just set this as 25, half of 50, the profile, see that it aligns it properly. Okay, you can see that something weird's happening in my profile, but I'll go change that just now. Okay, so offset here again is the same as that offset that you see on the top there. All right, ready to apply, ready to press OK. I'm not happy with my profile, so let's go and figure out how we change that. So I'm clicking OK. Okay, but I'm gonna draw in my balustrade. So what was the distance before? I think it was 30. So let's try moving this balustrade either 40 or 30. Let's use 30. Okay, so I'm drawing my balustrade path and I'm clicking done. Okay, you can see that it's populating on the wrong side. It's fine, I can just hit this mirror. Okay, for it to be in the right side. I see it's not sitting on the right place. I could have used 42. So let me just move that in the right place. Okay. Need some adjustment to my rail. Okay. Let's quickly go see what it looks like. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, except for that sticking out, I'll have to edit my path and just bring in my baluster, but I'm not too happy with that profile. So let's just go and figure out how we can change that. So instead of me going into the profile family, let's check out under families at the bottom of my project browser. Let's see if I can find the profile that I brought in. I see it down there. So I clicked on profile. I see it down there. All right, I can see the problem here, 30, 40, and 50. Okay, what if I want to create another one? All right, so I can say I want a new type. Right click, new type, and I can say that needs to be 10 mil. All right, and what I can do is click on the 10 mil, right click, go to type properties. Okay, you can see the profile on the left there, and then I can type on under diameter, I can type in 10, make sure it's the right type, and I can click OK. All right, and then it's merely me just going into edit type, editing my rail structure, and changing the profile on here to the 10 mil. I should think it's going to be a bit neater. Okay, there we go, that looks better. What's great about me having made these balusters by myself and not just getting it from anywhere is right now, if I just go to my floor plan, I cut a section through this and I'm doing maybe balustrade schedules and so on. If I cut a section through this balustrade, let's go to view. Okay, let's change my to fine. Okay, maybe I should push this a little bit onto that end. And open that a bit. All right, let's go back. All right, so what's great about it is you can actually see the thickness of this baluster and the profiles, okay, with all the details that I need to show in it. Essentially, I could have modeled in the little like fixings and stuff like that, but when I'm doing my details, come in here and actually show the bolts in here. But the more control or the more you customize your own profiles and balusters, then the amount of detail that you put in here could help you with generating better construction details and schedules or drawings for the manufacturer. So that's the kind of benefit for it. All right. So I'm just going to switch back to my screen. Okay, let's see what else we have here. So some best practices and tips on the railing usage is, don't forget to kind of nest in family components whenever possible and appropriate. Okay, it'll keep your components together when associated with something other than template that contains hardwired parameters and reference space. So like I've done the little attachment at the bottom, the side mounted element on the side of my baluster, you should also put in as much as you can for your elements so that when you create your railing, it's a little bit more easier to handle. Take care to use filters in your schedules. Okay, so some people use curtain walls as railings. Okay, it has its advantages. It's easier to use. It's easier with regard to design. But you also want to make sure that your curtain schedules are filtered to exclude the rest of the other elements. So essentially, you would use your filter to kind of filter out maybe the name of the curtain wall, so it doesn't pick up other actual shop fronts and curtain walls as compared to your balustrades. So you want to kind of differentiate that in your schedules. Something else that actually relates to other things other than balustrades would be the level of detail in your visibility. It's crucial when it comes to your fresh times with regard to your 3Ds and just kind of maneuvering around your model. You want to make sure that maybe the detail level, when you don't require that much detail, is set on course. And we want to remember that it's easier to build and test a custom stair rail or railing in a sample project first. So don't just plonk your railing into your project. Make sure that you try it out in a sample project, test it out, see if it works. If it's good, bring it into your main project file, and then you can start using it. Remember a few other things. That it's not only beneficial to you, but it's also beneficial to the project team. So create your railing so that you know that it's easy for the next person to use. Okay, create it in a simple format that you know that it's easy for the next person to use. And make it efficient implementation and changes that are fast and predictable. Okay, make it so that you can change it quickly and not stress and waste time on this design when you can be doing other things. Okay, elegant, understood by the team and by the new team members. Obviously, you just need to speak to whoever's in your team about what you have created and how it actually works. Okay, and make sure that you can use it on other projects. Don't just make a balustrade to use it for your project for the time being. You know, if you want to create a good balustrade, create it well, and so that you as a company or as an individual can use it on other projects as well as the one that you're using currently. Okay. All right. So we're quickly going to go through a summary of what we've done. So we went through like a basic system family definition of what it means to have a system family, of it being set in different components that you edit separately, and then together with all those components put together, you create a whole balustrade, a custom balustrade. The reason for this being a system family is that it wants to allow you, or Revit wants you to have this flexibility of creating different elements that together you can create a bigger design of a balustrade. Okay, so the first thing we went through is just creating your railing design before you actually use your software. Have in mind what exactly you need to do. Have in mind where the rails are going to sit, what distances, what's the profile sizes, what does your handrail look like, what is it doing, how is this fixed to your floor slab or your staircase or wherever you're using it. Then we went through the railing composition, which was made up of a top rail, a handrail, and we said the differences between a top rail and a handrail is basically you could essentially have a top rail, but it not necessarily be a handrail. You could have had a side mounted handrail. So just keep in mind those two things. So we had the top rail, handrail, rail structure, and baluster placement. So those are kind of what this system family, the components that it's made of. And then we went through the rail structure, where we specified the rail height, the different rail heights, and we specified the rail profile, what it looks like, and the material. And then we went through baluster placement, so we determined a pattern and how this is justified and justification of this. And we also specified the baluster profile and what it kind of looks like. So we had created a little family out of the project, and it looked like a little side-mounted profile that we had there. And then we went through some railing best practice tips. We just went through like what to look out for and kind of how to model more efficiently. All right. All right, so we're done. I just want to thank you guys for attending, and I will be looking forward to some questions from you guys. I'm going to give you guys some moments, and I see a few questions here at the time. All right, let me see if I can answer some of these. Okay, the one question from Werner is, can you duplicate the rails that is already created instead of creating a new one each time? You can, if you want to, you can duplicate, the rails. You don't have to create a new one each time. The next one I see from Werner again is a baluster per thread or tread influenced when selecting a number to the right. Not too sure with the question, if I'm understanding it right. So let me just read it again. Is a baluster per tread influenced when selecting a number to the right? I'm not too sure of the question, so maybe if I can get some more clarity, Werner, maybe you can contact me and then we can discuss it more. The next question is, how do you exclude curtain walls from schedules? If I can show you quickly through here. Okay. So I'm just going to switch my screen again quickly. I'm going to show you how to exclude normal curtain walls from. Okay, so essentially, okay, I'm just going to quickly draw in a curtain wall. So let's just say that we have a curtain wall going somewhere around here. Let's make a glass box somewhere. Okay, I'm just going to be quick about it. So curtain wall. Okay, I'm just going to put an actual curtain wall glass box. Okay, essentially what you need to do is these would be your normal shop fronts. Okay, I'm going to take that as this is a shop front happening on here. All right. And then essentially you need to go and edit type and possibly change this curtain wall to maybe, let's pick up and say balustrade. Okay, differentiating it like this would be easier for you to pick it up in your schedule. Okay, so let's say this is a balustrade. So I'm duplicating it, renaming it to balustrade curtain wall, and then let's assume that I've now drawn. Okay, let's kind of take this out. Okay, and let's quickly draw in my balustrade in here. Let's just make sure I have the right family going. Balustrade. And let's set this to unconnected. Let's set this to 900. Okay, that's my balustrade in here. All right, so we have those curtain walls at the bottom, and then we have our balustrade glass on the top here, which is actually a curtain wall. So now if we go to our schedule, we want to schedule this. Right click, schedule new quantities. Okay, what we're going to specify under the category is curtain wall or wall. Okay, it's going to fall under wall. Perfect. All right. So let's just make sure the phase is appropriate, and I could change this name to anything that I feel like. So I can say this balustrade. Oops. Let's take that out. Okay. All right. So this pops up and it tells me what are the fields that I would like to add in, and I could essentially add in whatever that I needed in here. Okay. You determine what you need according to the schedules that you are setting up. Okay. I'm just going to say width, maybe even area. Okay. If you had cost, then you would add that in and so on. Okay. What's important is filtering in here. Okay, let's maybe add in, I'm just thinking I should add a name. Okay, so filtering on here, so we need to find something appropriate to filter. Okay, and I don't see something appropriate according to the name. So let's see what else we could use to actually pick up. I want to see if assembly name pops up in here. We could possibly use assembly name. Okay, let me just see what else we could use we could use comments if we really needed to. And let's check what else is there. I think description looks like a good one. Okay, let's do description. Okay, let's take that out. Okay, I'm just going to click to move this up into there. I could essentially filter on description. Okay, I'm just going to wait for a moment. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Click OK to generate this. You can see that it's creating every single wall, even the balustrade ones. Okay, so we need to find something that differentiates this from the rest to filter it out with. So I'm going to go to level 2. Let's click on our curtain wall. Okay, essentially I said, remember, you could use comments, but it looks like it might be a bit more complicated. So let's go and edit type and find something else that we could possibly use. Okay, we could use any of these identity data that you see here. Even your type mark might be something that you could use, which I'm thinking. If you use your description for other purposes, okay, so let me just use both and I'll show you both. So essentially I could say, okay, glass balustrade, okay, and type mark, okay, it's a number that we could use essentially, or a letter, could be balustrade. Okay. With these two in mind, let's just note that this is under the type properties. It's under the information of this curtain wall balustrade that we've created. So every time that we create another balustrade with this wall, this information is going to be in there. Okay, that's important. So it wouldn't be on the other curtain walls. So now we have information to differentiate our curtain wall or our balustrade from an actual shop fronts. So if I just go back to balustrade schedule, you can see the description has changed. Okay, if I go to edit the fields, if I want to really, I can add the type mark if it really is necessary, or I can now filter through description. Okay, so description, so that needs to equal glass balustrade in order for me to show it on the schedule. So the moment I say okay, it's going to filter out everything else and keep those things in. So you need to find a field in order that you can filter this stuff. Okay, so you need to find a field in here that is different or makes these walls or balustrades of the curtain wall different from the rest of the stuff. Okay, that's why I use the type property elements and the parameter of the balustrade or the curtain wall of description. I've used that one. Okay, taken that, you've added it to the schedule. Okay, once you've added it to the schedule, it'll pick up under filter and you can choose something to filter with. Essentially, I could go also and say I want to filter by type mark. Okay, and it means the same thing as me doing that. Okay, we know that the type mark, I've only changed it on those balustrades. So that's how you would filter out those kind of elements. All right, I hope that answers your question. Okay. All right. So, okay, I understand your question, Werner. So when you were talking about the baluster per tread is influenced by the number, yes, you would specify how many balusters that you want per tread under that settings that you saw there. So if I go back there, let's just quickly click on the railing. I think it was baluster placement. Okay, you can see it's baluster per tread. So the amount of balusters that you want per tread would really affect that. As well as you can change what baluster is found if you want to override any of these others. Right, thanks for your questions. And I hope that was informative for all of you guys. Okay, so I think we're done. Thanks, Werner, for your questions. Thanks for being interactive. And I hope this was helpful for you guys. And please send through any kind of other questions if you need any, or if there are specific topics that you want me to cover, please do send them through. It's always good to have a look at what guys are struggling with. So please send me something through, okay? Otherwise, have a good Friday. Thanks, guys.